I mean, at a certain point, I'm going to have to tell folks to go ahead and start digging in. Go ahead and get firearms. Go ahead and get ready. I'm not pleased about this. We knew this was coming. It is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, the government declares war on the Constitution. I'm not just saying that. This is war against the Constitution, war against our freedoms, war against our founders' ideals, war against everything our veterans have fought and died for, declares worldwide war, sells torture, and everything is great. And all of us have a decision to make what side we're going to be on. You have a decision. And they're going to run the PSYOPs where the rollout of the military and the rollout of the FEMA camps is going to look like it's to help the public. And the military is going to restore order. And the military is going to stop hordes of welfare people burning down cities. And it's after all of that comes that then they start arresting people. And even if you've got a tyranny, as long as there's still courts, you've got a chance. But when they start talking like this, you don't have a chance. You can't go to the FEMA camp. You can't disappear into a black hole. And at that point, everybody has a right and a duty. If you were in Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, Maoist China, America can't go this way. We can't just bend over the barrel and say, have your way with us. Can't do it. And you've got to think about these scenarios, but never, never, never draw first blood. Never, if you're in some group, military training group or whatever, where people come shooting their mouths off about offensive operations, that's 100% a Fed trying to set you up or a foreign asset or a mercenary. No, you are above board. This needs to be above board, preparing to defend the Republic, period. And that's it. And you never draw first blood, and you never are offensive. Now, once somebody attacks you, it's a different story. But we're in an info war, and there's been a lot of cases in history where right when things get bad, things can turn around. There's a lot of different scenarios. There's a lot of other sub-level elites that don't like what's happening. They could get together, turn the tide. The system could realize they're not going to be able to carry this out, do their breakdown actuaries, and realize that they're not going to win. There's a lot of things that could happen. But you've got to understand that the situation we've reached. Look, I've got World War III news with Iran. I've got all this police state news. I've got economic news. It's all off the charts. Then I'm going to open the phones up for police and military. I'm Alex Jones, Prisonplanet.tv. Stay with us.
I don't know when
okay.
I'm stuck in.
Let me just run over a smattering of the news. Then we'll go to your phone calls. Then I'll go back into all this in detail. But if you are police or military, there's no longer any denial. I'd like to hear from you about the fact that from Europe to the United States, from Canada to Australia, every Western country is fully overthrowing the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is the basis of all of this common law. You can just type in Magna Carta overturned by judge, and you'll see articles all over England and Australia and New Zealand where they say the Magna Carta is dead. They're flaunting it. Obama became the head of the UN Security Council in violation of Article 1, Section 9. Never happened. Total violation of federal law and the Constitution for the president to be the head of a foreign body. It's happening. They are breaking our laws in front of us to set the precedent while throwing unconstitutional laws at us, throwing the book at the general public. Now, I've always told you they want to use the military. They want to secretly arrest us. Why? The globalists want to dominate. America is the prize. The biggest military, the wealth, everything. So while they've been sucking the wealth out of us, they've been setting up this global control grid. And now they know that we're awake to this and that we're going into a final phase, so they've set up Homeland Security. You know, police send me emails and call the show they did yesterday, and they talk about how ridiculous it is that the feds come in and say, you know, in the old days, we dealt with, shoplifters and crime and stuff like that. You will deal on a daily basis with truck bombs, improvised explosive devices, and patriot groups shooting you. Now, today, that's ridiculous. That's 1 out of a million. But in a way, it's twisted and true. Because as the criminal government wages war against the people and has set up the architecture of their attack profile against veterans, retired police, conservatives, you're all in a database. It's on record. Just get ready for it. As this happens, as you become a persecuted class, they know large portions of you are actually going to fight back. And so instead of having to stage terror attacks like Oklahoma City, you're actually going to fight them. And, of course, they'll blow up some daycares and stuff like Oklahoma City to blame you for it, for PSYOP. But most of it's just going to be people that, well, I'm not going to sit here in my house and wait for them to come confiscate my guns. I'll just go out and face them. I mean, you don't sit there in your house once this stuff kicks off. Okay, but we're trying to stop that. I'm talking about this because that's what comes next. I keep telling you, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I keep taking you right down to Z. And right now, we're down to, basically down to Q or so. I mean, Z is not a nice place to be. Z's like living under Mao Zedong during his heyday. It's about like living in 1943 Germany. And people ask, well, why would elites do this? Because they're so full of arrogance, chutzpah, bravada, whatever you want to call it, hubris. I mean, why did Corzine make a 40-to-1 bet with people's private bank accounts on MF Global? Because they're crazy. They're out of control. They're nuts. They're bold. They've gotten away with so much. Anybody who studied criminology knows this. Once a criminal gets away with things over and over and over again, they get out of control. They start thinking they're invincible. Why have I harped to police and military all these years? I'm getting chills right now. Because I studied history. I studied criminology. I started studying it because I thought it was entertaining when I was like 12 years old. You know, I was a jock who liked to read history books because they were laying around the house. And I picked them up and like, wow, this is really entertaining. All these battles and secret police and subterfuge groups and secret societies and German history and World War II and Confederate history and Northern history and Byzantine history and Japanese history. And then I went to college and they're like, world government's good and it's taking over. Your guns are bad. Your family's bad. And I'm like, I read about this. This sounds like Hitler. This is eugenics. I mean, I knew it because I'd read hundreds of history books. And then I got into reading books about criminals and psychopaths. First, I was reading books about gangsters and bank robbers. And then I started reading books about psychopaths. I started watching court TV with Jeffrey Dahmer trial. And I just got into this and I learned about the world. Most people know about football or whatever. I know about the world. And I'm going to ask you, police and military, you're where the rubber's going to meet the road. Is there anything you won't do? Is there any order you won't follow? Is there any line in the sand? Do you get what I'm saying? Here's the number. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Now I'm going to come back, hit the basic news, then go to your calls, and then start going back into it in more detail. Because the Iran situation, they're talking about shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. You name it right now. We'll be right back. 800-259-9231. Stay with us.
We're on the march. The Empire.
Okay, we've got police officers calling in. We've got military people calling in. I know that obviously you gentlemen and ladies are normally working during the weekday show. Weekday show is probably twice as big as the Sunday show, but I still love the Sunday show. It reaches over 1 million people, about 1.5 million or so. But I've always noticed during the weekday broadcast, it's harder to get police and military to call in because they're working. But we do have one military, current serving military, and one police officer on hold. I'm going to get to you here in just a moment. But others need to call in. You need to call in if you're on your donut break or whatever. And you need to get past the fear that, oh, my gosh, you know, this is all data-based, which it is. We need to be honest about that. You know what? If you get fired because they've got a database and you called into a talk radio show when you were off work, see, that just illustrates what I'm talking about. Of course, the truth is it just goes into a database. We need to be honest about how much trouble this country's in. Only by being honest about it can we turn this around. It's your First Amendment right, but it does show the chilling effect that's out there today. 800-259-9231. is the toll-free number to join us. Okay, let me just go over the news I have today. I mentioned this yesterday when it was in the New York Times, and I was expecting this to happen because when Fast and Furious came out earlier in the year, CBS 60 Minutes did a whitewash and said it was a few gun shops where they allowed guns to be sold to cartels to track them. Of course, it turned out it was already in federal court. That's why CBS did the whitewash, that they were shipping tens of thousands of guns into Mexico, Honduras, but also Illinois, Indiana, California, Texas, Florida, to drug gangs to kill the competition that didn't launder its money through globalist banks. And it's all on record, the big banks laundering hundreds of billions a year. You want an example? You're a new listener? Wachovia, Wells Fargo last year admitted they laundered $376 billion in 2 years. Okay, it's a $500 billion a year, but that was their cut. And they didn't get any trouble for it. You know, there's a federal regulation that allows foreign drug dealers to invest in the stock market. The head of the New York Stock Exchange back in '99, Richard Grasso, I have the Reuters article somewhere around here. I've done shows on it. He went and was photographed with the head of the FARC saying, invest with us all your cocaine money or we'll have you invaded. The head of the FARC said no. It took him a year to kill him, but they did bomb him and kill him. And, of course, U.S. Special Forces went in, and they've got GPS planes that spray only the coca fields they don't own. It was a giant covert invasion to try to keep the prices up. Oh, you bet. Our military's there to enforce a $500 billion a year drug traffic into this country. Marijuana, cocaine, and heroin. They really hate methamphetamine because they can't control it. That's something the local police make money off of. Yeah, I see cases where sometimes little bitty towns have, 20, 30 meth labs. Oh, and the police don't know. Of course, it'll also fry your brain and absolutely kill you. Speed kills. All this stuff's horrible. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying you make this stuff illegal, and it allows massive profits to corrupt your police, which is the plan. It's how the British took down the Chinese. Study the Opium Wars. It's mainline history. The Chinese were dumb enough to make drugs illegal, and the British said, we're taking over. And within 50 years, they had the whole country under their control by corrupting police, taking control of organized crime. All right, I said I'm going to your calls. See, I preface this. U.S. agents launder drug money report. French news agency. And this was in, again, New York Times yesterday. But, they laundered the drug money and the drugs to track it, to understand it, it says. Citing unnamed current and former federal law enforcement, the newspaper said the agents primarily with the Drug Enforcement Agency have handled shipments of hundreds of thousands of dollars in illegal cash across borders. It said they did it to understand how the criminal operations move the money. Oh, they did it to understand. Oh, Satan consorted with demons in the pit of hell to learn how demons operate. Jeffrey Dahmer kidnapped children and tortured them and raped them to find out about serial killers. No. Unbelievable. I mean, this is like in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And in the 20s during Prohibition, J. Edgar Hoover would go on radio and newsreels and then TV and say, there's no organized crime. It does not exist, because they would only bust small people delivering bathtub gin and money that wasn't part of a larger gang. I mean, if you were trying to make your own whiskey or moonshine, and this is on record, and weren't laundering it through the Kennedys and the Capones and Bugsy Siegel and all the rest of them, and the Rockefellers, they were the real kingpins over it all. Go research it. They would send police, the Untouchables. The Untouchables would come out to your shack and kill you. The ATF was the original whiskey regulators, going back to post-Civil War, and the whiskey rebellion over the tax. The FBI and people and ATF, the whiskey regulators, they weren't coming and fighting